Okay, here's our update on crypto. It is August 22nd, about 9 a.m. And my last update on crypto was July 13th. So, over a month ago. A lot has happened since then. We'll start with the Bitcoin chart, daily chart. And interestingly enough, that was my last video update. And you can check in the description as always. There's a link to that video. Check it out if you will. And I've been tweeting about it, about crypto since that I posted that video, but this is my first actual video update. It was actually on this day 62, this low here. Now, as I mentioned in that video, this was a higher low than this one for this daily cycle. So that was a good sign, right? And we did get this initial burst. Then we came down, held this higher low, had this slight higher high. And ultimately, this cycle has been not super bullish, right? So from this low to this peak on day 33, that's only a 32% gain, which is obviously not, amazing for crypto. And then we topped out on day 33 and we're now on day 40. This certainly has a look of a bear flag. And you imagine we have a 60-ish day cycle. That would mean quite a few more days of downside. And if we look at ETH on that same, ETH has done way better than, just look at that, like how vertical this chart is versus Bitcoin, which was more horizontal, right? In the case of ETH, if we measure from that day 62 low, we're up, just about 100% from that low. And again, of course, the low was 880, and we're not even measuring from that low here because we did chop around for this multi-day week period before we got this move up. Higher low. Remember, Bitcoin's higher low was not even that impressive. Then we got, and this is certainly driven by the merge. All that to say, we still topped out around the same day, and we've been moving down ever since. This looked like it was a bear flag. Like, okay, are we going to explode higher? And we got our answer, no. We actually exploded lower. This is definitely a sign, right? Look at these huge green candles. You see these, right? And look at these big red candles, right? We don't want to see these in a bull trend, right? So this is telling you this is a character change. Not to mention, we're clearly now on a downtrend on the daily level, right? This is your low, This is potentially going to be your lower high if we can't get above that. So that is at 1645. And I talked about in that video how 1283 was that breakout point. You can see it on this chart here pretty clearly, actually, right around there, right? Again, I always talk about these things as zones, not necessarily levels, but right around there, we needed to break above this congestion. And we did. We got there. And we even kind of sort of back tested it here, right? We didn't get very close, and then we boom exploded. Then we came back down, threatened to make another lower low, but no, we held above this. So this is telling you, this is giving you pretty clear levels. Ideally, we can hold above this pivot here, right? This bear flag doesn't break down, and we maybe kind of dribble down, find ourselves a swing low, and then move higher. But we'll have to see, especially considering, the merge is literally a month away. So let's model that out, right? If we model that out to the 15th, what day would that take us? I don't think that's a coincidence, folks. Look at that. Now that is really interesting. I'll just make sure I'll just be clear about what I'm saying. If you measure from the start of this rally, this new daily cycle, right? If you measure that to September 15th, that gives you exactly 63 days. And the specific number is less important than the general trend, the general kind of direction. The idea that this would be a 60-day loop makes a lot of sense. So that suggests we could find ourselves, right? Imagine we find ourselves moving into a low, as that day approaches, something like that. And then that, and then maybe something like that. And then hopefully, post-merge, there's all this bullishness, supply is reduced, demand doesn't fall off a cliff, and you just gotta move higher. That's what could be a scenario, right? Like again, I'm not necessarily making a prediction here. This is a scenario that I will be prepared for. I'll be watching for in real time, right? We imagine there's a bit more of a move down. We're gonna make a lower high at some point. Then we come down, make a lower low, and if we're moving lower, maybe we sell off into the merge, right? And then when it really happens, everyone's like, okay, this has actually happened. Issuance has really gone down. We start to move again. Never moves in a straight line. It would be a series of higher highs and higher lows. So that's what I'll be watching for. So that's the daily chart. I'll move over to the weekly, which is much more important because it's a very clear signal. So this is the weekly chart of ETH on the left, Bitcoin on the right. And again, as we talked about, ETH much stronger than Bitcoin, but they both have made a weekly swing high, right? So I'll zoom in on ETH here for a second. So week 8, which was the week of August 8th, marks the high for ETH. It made a high at 2031. And then we made a swing high on the weekly level by going below that low that marks that candle, right? So that candle's low was 1656. So once we slipped below 1656, we officially had a weekly swing high, and we did that, just this last week. We now have a new candle that opened last night. And so that's important because it means we're now in a downtrend on the week, we're potentially starting a downtrend on the weekly chart, right? Like think about that, right? This is your lower low, and so our expectation, if we are getting a downtrend on the weekly chart, would be the next move would be a higher low. So, a potential bounce, but one that resolves in a higher low, not making any actual forward progress. And so that's what we want to watch for. Do we continue to make lows on the weekly chart? I suspect we do. That means we're probably getting a top to this cycle on week 8. Notice last cycle topped out on week 9. And it ended on week 20. The one before that ended on week 31. And more importantly, when we roll over to the monthly chart, and I'll look at Bitcoin as well, but this is really important. We had a really bullish looking monthly chart at one point. This was nice and green, right? We know that because of how candles form, and you've just been watching the price action over the last many number of weeks, and you can check out, if you're not following me on Twitter, you should definitely do that. I give updates in more real time. But this was looking really positive, really solid. It was a monthly swing low, right? At one point, we were above this level, right? Like you can see, we poked our head above it, and now we've retreated big time. And so this is setting up for going below this low here, which would be $1,000. Do we get all the way down there? No way to know. We'll have to watch it. But as you think about it, if we continue to drop on the weekly chart, then this red candle on the monthly is going to form out. And then once August is over, that sets us up for downside in September, right? It sets us up for that September candle to open and then just kind of continue to sort of droop down as the weekly cycle continues to descend. Like imagine we get a 20-week cycle, right? So that would mean another 10 weeks of downside. Not necessarily in a straight line again. Things go in a pattern of downtrends, go lower lows, lower highs. So we will get bounces along the way. But that's what you want to watch for. And in terms of this pattern, again, we potentially had this month, so that would be June, forming a swing low. But now it's at risk, like we're already below that level. We no longer have the swing low in place. And now it's a question of, do we make new lows? And this is a general trend for like the crypto space as a whole. I'll go to Uniswap. I talked about this in my last update. In that last video, we actually did. Actually, it's still here, right? Like you can see that monthly swing low in place, right? Like so, we are still above the monthly swing low, which is activated above 615. But this is not a good look, right? It's going to be really important to see how we react to that 615 level. If and when we get down there, are we able to preserve this swing low, and does this become just a higher low, and then we continue to bounce higher on the monthly chart? So that's what we want to be watching for. Those are the kinds of levels that we're thinking about. this certainly looks like crypto is about to take a bath, bro, in terms of moving significantly lower.